stuff like that. Because actually, next thing I want to ask you is about coming up in your background. So you grew up in Delaware?
Yeah, born 1974, grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. People always get this confused. My mother's from Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
My father's from Washington, D.C. So I was born and raised in Delaware, but my whole life I'm bouncing back and forth in between these two places to go visit a lot of family. So again, for those that don't know, Washington, D.C. is sort of, it's the capital, but it's like this island culture-wise, because D.C. doesn't, people are going to be pissed when I say this, but from Delaware up, right, Philly, all this other stuff, people kind of look towards New York for styles, for sounds, and things of that nature. Don't get me wrong, Philly has a different style than New York, but from Delaware up, we kind of look towards New York. And when you go beyond D.C., when you get into like Virginia, North Carolina, and all that stuff, they look towards the South for their style and music and the way they dress. And then once you get past like the mountain ranges, everything else, Midwest, all that stuff, used to look towards the West Coast for style and sound. Washington, D.C. is this, it's our capital, but it's so small. It could care less what anybody else is doing in the United States. Go-go music is probably the prominent music in Washington, D.C. And not just the music, but the style, the way people dress, the way people talk. They could really care less what you're doing anywhere else. So D.C. was like this great place that was completely different than anywhere else, and musically and style-wise. And then New Jersey was great because New Jersey's always been on its own form of club music. What some people call, house. There's all these different terms or whatever. Like Chicago house is different from Baltimore house is different from Jersey house. So Chicago is sort of the birthplace, home. Chicago and Detroit battle back and forth with their styles of house music. Baltimore is sort of this, it's the music that like just repeats one phrase. Like, I'll beat that bitch with that. You're gonna do this all night. It's the same phrases all over again, over again, over again, over again, all night. Jersey is much more soulful, where we have fully written out songs. Yeah, and in a different tradition than everyone else. So it's like bouncing in between Jersey and DC gave me a different perspective than everyone that's just sitting in Delaware listening to Philly radio stations. But that was my upbringing. So as a kid, I can remember as early as like 7 or 8 years old. I had older cousins that were like 4 or start buying all these old rare records. And back then it was like, 50 cent, a dollar, or, the first thing you do is you run over your friend's house, you start raping his father's record collection. You know what I mean? Like, my father was great with, like, funk records and slow records. One of my best friends, his father was an avid jazz collector. So I just used to go over there and just, like, run through his records and then, like, wait for him to leave. And I'd grab 20 and run out the house and take them to my house. Like, that was the whole thing. And just going in dollar bins and finding records. But it was like an education process because it was sort of weird to me. At first, I thought everything came out of drum machines because I knew Run DMC.
Those were the records that were coming out.
Well, I knew Run DMC made their records with certain drum machines, and I would ask questions. But then Ultramagnetic came out with Critical Beats. I forget exactly what year that was, and I was just blown away. Like I was like, what beat machine is that they have that makes that drum like that? And then that's when I started to realize, my man was like, nah, they're taking this from this and taking that from that. And it wasn't until like people like I heard James Brown was on there, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. That's because I thought they were just programming from the beat machine, and it just opened up this whole other world of beat digging. And then once you go, you got to remember now that the internet, people will get on and they can easily find whatever it is that they want to find. This is like completely blind. This is like I'm just going in and I just start listening to records. So you might get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the record store and be in there and then turn around and it's like 8 o'clock at night. And it felt like 2 hours. It was just that type of thing. And it was just a beautiful experience of just finding new records and then the ultimate would be to find something that you heard on someone's album. It's like, oh, that's where they got it from. It's like this big discovery period. But that was my musical education into all these different forms of music.